off the charts introduction. So look, I am dialing in from my hotel room in Spain. So apologise for the poor grainy graphics, and hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes.
I'll bring on screen. Before I bring on screen the presentation, Greg's 100% right. So the company has 1.6 million ounces of a defined resource in the ground, grading at 4.3 grams a ton. It is high grade. It's a large resource. Not many people know about it in Australia. I joined the organisation through a chap called Paul Cronin. Paul Cronin and I did some work with Adriatic Metals. Adriatic Metals was listed on the ASX in 2018 as a junior exploration play, and has since gone on to be a $700 million market cap with funding to do FID on their Rapidse, silver, lead, zinc, copper deal. So that's my connection to Black Dragon. Paul Cronin asked me to join as CEO earlier this year because of the fact that it was unloved, under-promoted. So I'm here to promote. So thank you for the opportunity, Greg, and just for all the participants here, feel free to butt in at any time. And I'm happy to take questions along the presentation. Yes. Or at the end. Now, Greg, I'm just trying to share my screen.
Yes.
And it's coming up with a host disabled participant screen sharing.
Try it now.
Message. Okay, let me try again.
I'm better at identifying stocks than working Zoom.
No, that worked. No, you're a magician. Okay, hopefully this comes up in a sec. All
Gabriel,
right.
Before we even get to the presentation, also, can you just explain to the audience also that you are extremely familiar with the company? Because whenever, frankly, we see management changes, it always does put up a yellow flag. But you are very familiar with the company. You're very familiar with Paul. Like, this is not a new story to you.
No, correct. Look, Paul helped. Paul tapped me on the shoulder. Look, my background is, chartered accountant. They're boring accountant. I was the world's worst accountant. I went into capital market startup companies from 2000 onwards. Met Paul in 2015. Adriatic, doing some work for Adriatic. He then tapped me on the shoulder in 2018 to say, "Can you help me with Black Dragon and some ASX work?" He then begged me to be the CFO. I said no to any CFO work. So he's then begged me to be the CEO. So I am familiar with the story. I'm very comfortable with the people, very comfortable with the assets. So
right.
It wasn't a what's the word, a culture
hatchet
shock
job
or a hatchet job. Correct. There's no blood on anyone's hands.
Okay.
So I'll just scroll through that hopefully.
Right.
Okay, so why we're here. So why you should look at BDG as mentioned. It's one of the largest undeveloped gold projects in Europe. CSA in Perth did the mineral resource estimate back in 2018. It's 11 million tons of indicated, measured, and inferred, mainly in the indicated and measured classification. It's high grade. It is underexplored. The last drill bit went into the ground in 2018. A lot of the drill holes were vertically drilled, so it didn't really intersect the sort of orientation of the lens of the deposit, which runs northwest to southeast. So we know the next time we put a drill bit into the ground that we'll be chasing the strike along those lenses in the orientation. So we expect to get higher grade. In terms of the metallurgy, it's been a ton of work done on it. So to get the project mined, the ore put through a processing plant is really conventional. It's off the shelf. It's crush, mill, grind, thicken, and then off to the off takers. So we'll develop it to a concentrate level. So really simple process. We've got a 30-year mine life on it. The concession's been awarded, so we don't need to go back to the authorities once we get our EIA and seek a mining license.
Right.
And 30-year mine life, mining license means we can be patient, right? There's not a pressure to get everything done, and people make mistakes when there's a deadline, right? So we've been patient and respectful. Sorry, Greg, did you have a query?
No, keep going. I've got a lot of them, but
No,
I don't want to interrupt you. That's fine.
no problem. I'm happy to be interrupted at any time. So where we're at the moment is that, you know, we've gone through probably a 2.5 year period to get our EIA across the line. So the EIA was lodged in 2021. Then there was a sort of open period of, you know, public comments, and which allowed, you know, people who any stakeholder, whether they're someone who's willing to provide services, government authorities, the local farmers, the NGOs. So that period went on for 4 months. It shut earlier this year. We then had to do a response to it, which we lodged in May. It was an 800-page response to the public consultative period. So it's a thorough job, but we're all very proud of it. And I'll touch on that later on in the presentation. We do hear, and you know, some of you guys probably hear the same thing, that doing work in Spain is difficult, getting permits are difficult, but we've had a lot of recent success in getting the permits that we've requested. So we recently had our exploration license rolled over for a further 3 years. So that will allow us to put some drill bits into the ground and expand the resource. We've also recently had the 18-hole drill hole permit granted as well, you know, all per the law, all per the timetable, and no real issues. So, you know, it takes me to the next point, which is I think this project is de-risked to the point of, as Greg mentioned, you know, we do think this has the potential for a multiple sort of uplift in share price if you do a simple peer comparison to other companies with similar inventory on their mineral resource estimate. So we are,
yeah, and that's exactly, you know, what you just said. Do you feel like that by buying in now, you know, you're effectively getting like the last few years of work for free, so to speak?
it's a good analogy. Look, you know, I look at it, me as a CEO, I'm piggybacking off everyone else's work as both as a shareholder and as a CEO.
Yeah,
and I hope that shareholders see the same thing. There is this sort of, you know, piggyback phenomena where the hard work's been done, and it's really just the final, you know, the marathon, the final 2Ks. You just want to make sure that you get to that finishing line, because the guys that have been involved in the project, you know, they're all professional, but they do need to get G'd up. So I think that's a good analogy.
Okay.
It is a free look at, you know, probably not just the last 2 or 3 years. I'd say probably 15 years, Greg.
Okay.
Yeah, Black Dragon, and I'll get into the history later on, but you know, Black Dragon's one of 3 companies that have had a go at the EIA, and the learnings there were sort of invested into the EIA that we lodged last year, and then the response to the public comments. So
Got it.
Yeah, we've been a bit. Yeah, I'm lying when it says we. It is our general manager over in Spain, and our team. We've got a really good team over here.
Right.
Finally, on the why you should invest in BDG, we did announce to the market that we are looking at other opportunities, mainly in the precious metals sort of sector within Australia. So, you know, there's various reasons why we're doing it. One of which is it's always good to diversify. Secondly, it will provide some news flow for investors and for the market leading into this EIA approval process. And thirdly, it just puts pressure on the Spanish authorities over here to say we're not a single sole risk asset with all our eggs in the Spanish basket.
Right.
Just a quick overview. This is where we're at. So I'll just put where the project is. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but the region we operate in is a autonomous region called Asturias. So all of the decisions in relation to the EIA, in relation to the permitting, drill hole development, is all done in Asturias. So there's not much federal overlay, and we've got a really good strong team over here. The project sits here. The project was first discovered by the Romans 2,000 years ago. They pulled out 7 tons of gold, and there's the open pits are still there to go and have a look at. There's a 3-lane motorway that runs. The infrastructure is really good. That runs about 90 kilometers. There's a deep sea container port here called a ville, which we'd be trucking the con to. So it's about 90 kilometers. It's high speed. I've done it many times. It's 130-kilometer speed limit. Excellent roads. Yeah, it's really good. It is really good infrastructure. Low cost jurisdiction. We mentioned the security of title. It's politically stable. I'm meeting the Conservative Party tomorrow, the leader tomorrow. So they're open to having meetings. There's no sort of cloak and dagger sort of skullduggery over here. It is an open process.
And Gabriel, I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, the northern area of Spain is one of the most prospective areas for commodities in the country. I believe that there's zinc up there and there's big players like Glencore around as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, that's a good segue. And Greg, you haven't seen my slide, so just in case everyone thinks this has been set up, this is my next slide. Believe it or not.
Okay.
Greg. So
Okay.
I have not shared this. I have not shared this with anyone.
Okay.
So 100%. Look, yeah, Spain's been a mining destination for hundreds of years. In fact, if I point you down here, a company called Atalaya Mining still runs the original Rio Tinto copper mine.
Right.
That gave the name to Rio Tinto. And the connection with Atalaya and Black Dragon is that the CEO of Atalaya is a chap called Alberto Lavandera. And Alberto is on our board as a non-exec director.
Okay.
So again, I'll go into that connection in my next slide. But just there are some familiar names here: Highfield, Potash. These are Australian companies. Rydell Resources, obviously. We got Sandfire over here. Sandfire recently acquired Matsa, which is why I've got the Matsa sort of logo there. That was a $2 billion transaction, and really, I guess has put Sandfire as a global copper player on the market. And so look, you do get deals done in Spain. There is good geology. As you said, Greg, all along here. I mean, the interesting one for us is a company called Orvana Minerals, which is TSX listed. It's got a gold project about 100 kilometers away from where we're at. It's currently operating. So there is good precedence there to have gold projects and plants up and running in the same region.
Excellent.
I'm happy to take any questions if there's any questions on that sort of slide.
No, but I think they're going to be on this one.
Good. Okay. So this is the reason why it was a no-brainer for me to join. This was published in 2018. CSA out of Australia did the mineral resource estimate, and obviously there's, it's a high-grade resource. As mentioned, most of the inventory sits in the indicated and measured. So you've got about 8 million tons there, high-grade ore body, and we think we can increase the grade in it without too much complication. So the numbers really speak for themselves. There's been 60,000 meters of drilling over the last sort of 15 years.
Right.
If we take the resource, if we play around with the resource estimate and use a 1 gram a ton cutoff, which is very familiar and used quite often in Australia, all of a sudden you're sitting on 2.2 million ounces of gold.
Right.
Still at a reasonably high grade of 2.6. And again, we think we can get the resource inventory and the number of ounces in ground. We think we can triple that, subject to getting our EIA approved. So, part of what we're doing with the Spanish government over here is, we're happy to spend another $10 million on exploration. We're happy to invest whatever it takes to get our resource up to, 5 or 6 million ounces of gold, which is where we think it will go to.
Right.
But you guys need to step up. You need to step up to the plate and allow us the opportunity to invest, and the gate to that is the EIA approval. So they understand that.
Right. And EIA, I'm sure we'll get into it later. Maybe the EIA, it's obviously like a potential company maker, game changer. But do you want to touch on that later, maybe?
Yeah. Can do here. But
whatever suits you.
Why don't we circle back to it at the end, because it is as you mentioned, probably we all think internally, if the EIA gate is open, that we get to $100 million market cap is where we think it will go. But I mean, it's obviously subject to market conditions and sentiment and gold price, etc. So, but that's really just doing a peer comparison of other companies that are completely, at the final de-risking pre-FID stage. So if you're pre-FID with 2 million ounces in the ground, we think $100 million market cap is a reasonable sort of measurement.
Got it.
Board and management, quickly, I won't bore everyone with this, but this is just, there are other people behind it, but these are the main players. Paul Cronin, ex-R&B, familiar with financing resource companies in emerging markets, currently CEO, founder of Adriatic Metals in Bosnia. Alberto Lavandera, who I mentioned previously, who runs Atalaya Mining. Not many people have heard of Atalaya Mining. They are listed on the London Stock Exchange. They had a 400 million euro revenue they're operating, so they had revenues of 400 million euros with an EBITDA of 200 million euros. Calendar year 21. They run the Rio Tinto copper mine, as mentioned. He's a what's the word? He's going to be my little secret weapon here in Spain. We haven't really lent on him too hard, but in the next 6 months leading into the EIA approval process, we're going to start rolling it. We're going to start to roll Alberto out. He's got a profile. His connection to Salave Gold, the name of our gold project. His connection to Salave Gold goes back 20 years.
Right.
He was at Rio Nithia, which owned Salave. So he's got some unfinished business, and he would dearly love to have Salave Gold up and running as the next gold project in Spain.
Okay.
He's a serious player. Quickly touched on my background. So, I do specialize in small caps companies, trying to get them from, a small cap to 200 million, 300 million plus. I've done that with Ioneer. I've done that with BlackRock Mining. I'm doing that with Invictus Energy at the moment as a non-exec director. So I do sit on 2 other boards, being BlackRock Mining as a non-exec director.
They raised money, I think it was last week. Yes.
Correct. So that's been a good story, and it's a really good model. You just be patient, do the right things, and the re-rate will come.
Yes.
Last but not least is our country manager, Jose Dominguez. Jose is he's not in the room, thank God, but he's a veteran. He's also got some unfinished business. He lives about 100 kilometers from site, so he's here all the time. He's ex-Imrus, which is an industrial minerals behemoth. It's a $1 billion plus company in the minerals space. He's ex-Rio Tinto, speaks 3 languages, fluent in English, and he's our main guy here in Spain to facilitate and manage the project. Really good guy, really safe pair of hands. As mentioned, the processing is pretty simple. It's crush, mill, float, thicken. So it is all off the shelf plant and equipment. I know at the moment, people are struggling for long lead items.
Yes.
There'll be no, and CapEx, there'll be no long lead items for us. We've actually already, through Atalaya, we've already got the flotation cells that we'll repurpose from some of their spare capacity. So we're starting to, set aside some plant and equipment that we require. That's part of Alberto's sort of project to assist with sourcing that. A lot of the plant and equipment will come from within Spain because there is an industry here, as previously shown. So look, this is a well-trodden pathway for producing gold. We get it to concentrate level, and then we've got off-takers that we've spoken to, including Trafigura, who will process it to doré and gold refined stage over in Asia.
And Gabriel, also, just for, because everyone or most people I know are from Australia, are there any significant differences we should know from a processing point of view in Spain versus Australia?
Yeah, good question. Not really. I guess right. I mean, the main point is obviously just having access to all your consumables as you to make sure that there's enough there to ensure that you don't run out and having to stop the
fuel, water,
Yeah. Part of your flotation and filtration systems, having spare, rod mills as part of your milling process. Just so, but no, there's no issues there at all.
Okay.
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same process. And we've had two just in the Black Dragon sort of ownership stage, which was from 2017 onwards. We've had a Spanish-based company called CRS Engineering, who did the original scoping study, look at this flow sheet.
Right.
And then recently, you can see this company here called Barra Consulting. So this is done in 2021. So this is a recent review, and it hasn't changed. And so it sort of gets onto the next sort of slide in terms of what our sort of infrastructure looks like. It is really bog standard, traditional. The only change we've got here would be that we have to enclose the plant. So often you see plants in Australia and USA, Canada, Chile. You'll see the processing plant out in the open with your flotation plants, your conveyor belts, your mill rod, etc., all exposed. We're having to enclose it, and that's just really part of doing business in Spain, to ensure to reduce part of the noise and part of the visual sort of look about it.
Let's face it, some of it can be ugly. Yes.
It won't cost any. It cost a little bit more, but we'll tailor it. And it's part of our EIA, and I'll circle back to it. We've tailored the EIA for local conditions and local requirements. The other which is a lot of what a lot of companies are doing, just with their tailings management facility. We've got two tailings cells here. It will convert to a paste fill with cement and lime added, and over time, at the end, it will get rehabilitated and handed back to the community as land and that can be used. So it'll be fully contained and membraned. So
right.
And I'll touch on some of the other EIA tweaks we had to do, which I haven't gone on in that slide. Just quickly, look, this is an old scoping study. It's done in 2019. It was done by CRS, as mentioned. It uses an old basket price of $1,250. So it payback of 3.8 years. NPV at 5% is 296 million pre-tax, 230 million US post-tax. We obviously need to update this, and part of what we're trying to do is, and we've already spoken to. We think we're going to get Barra out of the UK to do it. Barra's got more of a global name, and we are cognizant of the fact that we do want to have global badges that investors in Australia and investors in the US and investors in England are familiar with.
Right.
We think we can get the scoping study upgraded to a DFS level, because it is such a simple, off-the-shelf, conventional flow sheet that we can go from scoping study to DFS pretty quickly.
Okay.
A lot of work's been done. The one thing we need to do to get the DFS is probably do maybe 4 to 6 diamond holes to do grade control, to do additional metallurgical work, to tie back into the life of mine plan. So, but we've got the drill hole permit to do it, so we don't see that as being a bottleneck to getting it done.
And Gabriel, could you even do that in calendar 22?
Good question, Greg. We do it. We would absolutely do it in 22 if we got our EIA.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So part of we're a sport. We want to look after shareholders' funds. We don't want to. I'd love to go out there and drill 15 holes, get some high grade hits, get some news flow into the market. But if the EIA is not there, it's sort of money that.
No point.
Look, it's a question. It's a hurdle we'll sort of cross towards the back end of this year.
Yes.
I don't know if there's any queries on there. Look, we're cognizant that it's out of date. We expect inflationary to pressure to flow through to the OPEX, CAPEX, but we also note that the gold price was done. This is done on a base case $1,250 an ounce, and if we plug in $1,800 an ounce, then what we've done back of the envelope with 1,800 an ounce, and say, you know, OPEX up to sort of $700 to $800 an ounce, you know, you're looking at an NPV of you know, close to $400 million. So it does flow through. But look, I don't want to speculate on that, because that's obviously, you know, forward forecasting, and we need to get our you know, the new consultants to come in and upgrade it. All I've got to say there is it's a robust project, a robust economics. Won't be a problem getting debt. Won't be a problem paying that debt off within a 3-year period as well.
Right.
Quick snapshot overview. There's about 200 million shares on issue at the moment. Market cap, as Greg mentioned, we are a micro cap. We are undervalued, like every CEO says that. We're 13 million. It gives a value of, you know, the 1.6 million ounces in the ground at 4.2 grams a ton. Gives us a value, an EV, enterprise value of 9.7 million. We've got cash in the bank of 3.4 million. So we're not coming to the market to raise money this calendar year unless you know, we're going into DFS mode, which will be a good reason to go out and raise money. And we've got our EIA.
I was going to say that there's no risk of, you know, with that much cash, you're certainly fully funded unless it's what I call a high grade problem, no pun intended.
Correct. No, 100%. If we're raising money, it'll be for good reasons.
Yeah.
And it'll be, you know, I'd like to be raising money at 20 cents next, to be honest.
I hope so.
Higher. Yeah, or higher. So. Major shareholders, Deutsche Balaton, they've been a really strong support of the company. They're a family German-Swiss group. We stay in close contact. They've supported the company in the last 3 raises. They're long on precious metals, and they'll continue to invest. They love the project, European based. So there are other ways we can tap into the European network, and that's part of what I'm doing over here, is really to start to promote the company to some European investors. David Michael is a Perth-based broker. He's in his I won't say how old he is. He's probably early 60s, but he's a well credentialed resource entrepreneur. He owns 13% of the company, and then we've got Paul Cronin, who's our chairman, who also owns a considerable amount of shares. So they're all long-term supporters. There's not much liquidity in the stock because everyone's waiting for the re-rate.
I was going to, and that's one of the questions that I had ahead of time, Gabriel, is, are you concerned that there's of the lack of liquidity in the company?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I look at these prices and at these values, no, because yeah, the less shares being washed out into the market, the better, because it just forces your price down. I suspect that there'll be accretive milestones that would shake out a lot more shares as the company resets and as the company re-rates.
Right.
But a lot of the investors have come in at 20 cents a share through the IPO on the ASX. So the previous primary exchange was TSX. So it was a primary TSX listed company. TSX, as you know, shut down its resources sector in the sort of mid to 2016, 17. It became a pot stock, as you know, pot stock exchange. So the company before my time chose to list on the ASX as its primary exchange, and most of the investors came in at 20 cents a share. So I suspect there'll be people selling at 15 cents. So, for people to buy in, between these levels and 15 cents, I think there'll be opportunity to shape additional liquidity in the stock, Greg.
Okay.
Happy to take any more questions on the corporate overview, but look, the board and management are strongly aligned. With I've recently bought shares on market as well, not a lot, but at the right time. It's hard, because you're in possession of inside information. It's hard to pick up shares along the way, but I'll continue to pick up shares at the right time when the windows are open.
Right. And Gabriel, I obviously, like this slide, says the upcoming milestones, but clearly on top deck there is the big one, the EIA. Can you just tell investors, because there's some people on here that are, they're just not familiar with it, Gabriel. So can you just give a little bit of an overview of what it means and why it's so important? Yeah, no, and that was sort of left there for my last point, though. So another good segue. Look, the EIA, the
the project has had three previous goes, including ours. Sorry, so there's been 3 EIAs presented. Our one being the third. The first one was done by Rio Nathia in 2008, 2009. The second one was done by Asta Gold in 2014.
Right.
And we're the third cab off the rank, and we've lodged ours in 2021. So failings for EIA in the past were Rio Nathia. They had an open pit mine. The locals were against having an open pit mine. They also they rehabilitated the open pit, and you know, when they went into rehabilitation mode, they decided to turn the open pit mine into a marina. So they blasted the remaining sort of peninsula of land between the mine and the ocean. They blasted it. Their concept was to create a luxurious marina, which was the antithesis of what the locals wanted, right?
Okay.
Could you, like, I don't know if you guys have been to Marbella in Spain, or if you can imagine like a Gold Coast styled, you know, marina with you know, 50-foot luxury cruiser. So the locals kicked up a stink, mainly because of the open pit and the fact that the owners were going to turn it into a property development play. So that EIA got rejected. The second EIA got rejected mainly because of the water treatment arrangement. The Asta Gold EIA had all of the water. It was all being treated, so there's no nasties going into the streams, but their water treatment was being piped into all the local tributaries and all the local streams, which then went into the main river and out to the sea, where families went swimming. So it was more of a perception so that EIA mainly got rejected for water treatment.
Got it.
We have, and I'll get to the, you know, I know your question is, why is EIA important? It's because if your EIA gets rejected, it takes you another 4 years to get have another go at getting your EIA up again. Right?
Okay. So it's huge.
So this time around, Black Dragon has, you can do it shorter, but yeah, we've just been told it's a 4-year process. Black Dragon, it learned, Black Dragon board and Black Dragon management came in 2017. So Paul, Alberto, and Jose have been with the project since 2017. Our chief geologist, a chap called Doug Turnbull, Canadian based, he was there with Asta Gold when its EIA got rejected. So all those learnings from the previous sort of 15 years have flowed through to our EIA process. So we don't have an open pit; it's an underground mine, it's an easy, and because a lot of the and I'll send through some slides post this meeting, Greg and Jake, so you can share it with your investors. But because all the mineralization is from surface down to sort of 200 meters, the underground mine won't be expensive.
Okay.
And the PEA that you saw with those economics contemplates an underground mine. So those costs are at underground mine level. Okay. The water issue with Asta Gold, a big red flag. You know, it's like locals don't want to be seen, even though the whole area is an industrial area, right? So there's a paper mill up the road, there's a dairy mill, there's a dairy production facility up the road, there's a fluorspar mineral commodity processing plant along that highway that you saw. So it is an industrial area, and there is wastewater that's been treated and managed through to the environmental level. So we're no different. What we did with our wastewater treatment and dewater treatment is the wastewater just gets recirculated within the plant. So there's 99.9% of the water that we use to crush, grind, and thicken and float. All that water gets recycled and reused in a closed circuit in the plant. So none of that gets piped out into the local waterways. In order to dewater the underground mine, so as we go underground, we encounter just normal water, right? It's not table water. It's not a water that's going to interrupt the agricultural irrigation, but it is just water that's the area is wet, right? So as you go underground, you're going to encounter water. So that water we have to dewater the mine as we go underground. That water gets piped to our plant that you saw in that facilities infrastructure slide. Gets water to our plant. It gets filtrated, and then our clever solution is to pipe underground, pipe the water under the surface of the ground about 40 meters, and it continues to stay underground, and the emissory pipe goes out 800 meters out into the ocean. And the water that goes out into the ocean is cleaner than the water that's in the ocean. So it is potable, drinkable water. We've had the local water authority review and manage our water treatment, and they've given it a ticket of approval. There's a company called CHC, so they're like the local water authority. They're the main utility and the main objectives to the Asta Gold EIA. So just taking you back to Asta Gold, the main reason Asta Gold's EIA was rejected was because of their water treatment, which was straight into the streams and straight into the river. So we've had the head, and this is privately said to us, the head of the local water authority said this is the best water treatment management plan that he's ever seen. So they won't be objective. Sorry, Greg, please interrupt.
I said, so you've definitely learned from history.
I hope so. Look, there's been a ton of work got into it. So, I mean, I was just going to say, the water authority chaps have said they're not objecting, and they didn't object to our in the public consultation period. So leading into that public consultation, so you can imagine all these NGOs that Europe are famous for were just trying to throw darts, but none of them attacked our water management treatment process. And we've got the head of the water utility backing us, which is great. So it is different. And look, I know we're sort of ticking on in time here, but what I'm hearing over here is that this time around is different. So Doug Turnbull, who was our chief geologist, who was with Asta Gold, and is currently with us as well with Black Dragon, he said in the lead up to the EIA and in the lead up to sorry, I've just got a message coming up that my audio is off. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So what I've just taken going back is that, so Doug said that in the previous arrangement that there was lots of noise, lots of protest, lots of media, lots of sort of rallies. This time around, we're not seeing any of this. It's a lot quieter. It is a lot quieter. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Greg, the EIA, as you mentioned, is the main issue, in terms of re-rating, and I do think we get the EIA, we'll get to $100 million because that's what other peers are, plus with our current resource. I'm happy to take any messages. Look, my audio, there's something happened to my audio, so I'm going to have to take these off.
That's fine. We can hear you just fine.
Great. I'm happy to take any more questions on that before sort of going into the other milestones and other sort of events to keep an eye out for. Yeah,
someone is just sending me a WhatsApp message regarding the timing of it. Is there a hard date on the EIA or a period of time to look for?
Yeah, no, good question. We've got the authorities have got 6 months to come back to us. So we lodged our EIA response to the public comments earlier this month, and there's an ASX announcement that you guys have probably seen. Yeah. So that'll take us through to November. What we're strategizing over here, and what I'm trying to do with the locals over here, is to make sure that we catch any of the feedback as early as possible. So part of our risk mitigation process is staying close to the decision makers, and that's where Jose Dominguez, our general manager over here, is in touch with he's got contacts into the environmental department, like open contacts, not behind the scene contacts. So you can walk into the department and say, I want a meeting with Greg Lowe to talk about our project. So those meetings are out in the open. So they've got about 6 months. Again, what we want to try and do is get any feedback as early as possible so that we can either respond to any queries, because I do think I do think that, you know, the dossier that we lodged in relation to the public comments is about 800 pages.
Right.
Most of the sort of queries came in are all very similar, but slightly different questions. So, you know, some of the NGOs would try and frustrate you by asking the same question 15 different times or 20 different times, but use different descriptors or different
Right.
you know, titles, which means you still have to respond. So despite our response being 800 pages long, it's probably 120 pages of actual content and proper responses because of the repetitive questions.
I understand. Right. So it's definitely, it's not like, and these are my words now, you just submit it and wait 6 months. It's a dialogue process, and you're, you know, it's more toing and froing, if you will.
Yeah. Look, if we need to be proactive, Greg. So if we leave it on someone's desk, you know what public servants are like. We leave it on someone's desk, man. That thing will go to the bottom of their pile.
For sure.
So part of our risk mitigation is we've got a group over here called a Trevia. They're political lobbyists. They're environmental scientists. They're PR. They're IR. They've got a national reach. They're managing our political PR media side. So we've got a few hooks and sort of channels into government, either in Madrid, and we don't really need to push the Madrid angle much because all the decisions are made locally. But we will use, as you know, we want to be smart about it, and you know,
right.
we are copying what Paul Cronin did with Adriatic metals in Bosnia, right? Which is, you know, be respectful, make sure you invest in the local community. Be proud of what you've done. Don't try and hide. Don't try and take shortcuts. The other thing with Asta Gold is that the chap that was, you know, I don't know what accent you've got, Greg, before I offend you.
American.
But you've got
yes.
North American or US or Canadian.
From New York, yes.
Right. So Asta Gold, Canadian promoter, he flew in to meet and greet people in his helicopter.
Right. Probably not the
with
best.
With his Russian girlfriend. So
right.
What happened was all the locals just said, these guys are here to pump, dump, and sell Salave to the highest bidder.
Right.
So our message to the government here is we're here to develop, we're here to invest, and we're here to earn a social license, which really takes me to another reason why I think Black Dragon is a re-rate and a multiple bagger, is that there are people watching Salave Gold's been, as mentioned, it was discovered 2,000 years ago. It is a trophy. It is a trophy for a lot of mining companies in Europe. And look, Sandfire, even Atalaya, possibly
right.
Adriatic, possibly other, you know, Tech, Barrick. These are trophies that don't come along very often. If you get a 6 million ounce high grade gold project, we're on the map, we're on the radar. So I'm not saying we're in play, we've not had any approaches, but I
right.
do suspect that the closer we get to an EIA decision, the higher the ruler comes out for an M&A opportunity. But we're not there for it. My job is to continue to develop, promote,
right.
get the company ready to put for FID. We will get to FID hopefully next year post EIA, and if someone comes in with a bid, that's great because everyone wins.
Sure.
Greg, I mean, the other thing I just want to quickly touch on, I think I mentioned we are looking at other projects, so there'll be news flow coming on. We've currently got a precious metal sort of project that we're looking to do DD on, so that's, you know, some short-term news that we'll use to obviously allow the company to develop another project outside of Spain.
Right.
I'm happy to take any questions or if there's any queries. I will share the slide deck with you and Jake. So
that'd be great. Okay, hey, Gabriel, one of the questions I'm getting is that, you know, for Australian exploration activities, do you have enough cash to acquire one? Obviously, it's a general question and probably challenging to answer, but I'm asking it anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. What we've done is that we've looked at a fit for purpose sort of exploration play that ensures that we don't consume a lot of our cash. So we've looked at projects, 2-3 million plus,
Right.
which means we'd have to go out and raise money. So we're targeting what I'd call sort of out of the box exploration plays that are sort of off grid. So part of our angle is to connect with some smart geologists who are out there in sort of areas where some of the majors haven't looked at.
Right.
So one of those exploration plays we like, it's a gold copper play in WA. We hope to secure it. So we're currently in negotiations with that. It won't be a big spend, so we are cognizant of that.
Right. Well, good luck with that. Okay. Another question I have is that with the EIA, is there an actual comment period the person is asking?
So is there a comments period?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I assume I'm asking the question as it's given to me. Yes.
No, that's okay. No. Yeah, no. Good question. Maybe I either didn't explain it or it sort of went over.
Yeah.
Went through to the keeper. So the EIA was lodged in 2021.
Right.
As a final document. The next stage was for the EIA to be accepted by the environmental department here in Asturias. It got accepted. It got through that next gate. The next process was to open the EIA to public comments through a public consultative period. So the answer to your question is yes, there is a public consultative period. That period was shut earlier this year, and then after that public consultative period was shut, we got given all of those questions. And as mentioned, a lot of those questions were the same question, but just asked slightly different.
Right.
So we got asked, for example, like, the water treatment, how do you treat the water? Then the second question would be, is the water treated through an osmosis period, a filtration system? Then the next question would be, it's a similar, that public consultative period was shut, and we then responded to all of those public comments earlier in May. So that's the final part of the EIA process out of the way. The next part is just a decision. It's really green, amber, or red. So red we want to avoid, like 100%. We will, just to let everyone know, we will stay close to the environmental department, so that if they think that there's a red flag coming, we will get in front of them to stop them declaring it red. So what we're wanting, obviously, first prize is green, and as mentioned, we think and we know that from local people, the local community, and our network here, that there's so much less noise on our EIA. There's less protests, there's less media, there's less people against us this time around. If it's amber, we can work with amber. And amber's all right, because amber just means they've got some questions on some of the comments that we responded to. So amber's fine, and amber's sort of not unusual. If it's amber, what we're trying to do over here with our risk mitigation, if it's amber, we want to hear about those amber queries in July and August.
Right. Got it.
So we can respond, and they can give us our EIA by Christmas.
Right. Perfect. Hey, we just want to keep it, we're already running over a little bit. Do you have any closing comments for people?
My closing comments?
Yes.
Yeah. I think you wrapped it up with the introduction, Greg. So, Black Dragon is unloved, it's underpromoted, it's an amazing resource.
Yeah.
We do think we can get to 6 million ounces by spending, $6 million on drilling, and we want to do that drilling in the near term post EIA.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's got the ability to be a 10 bagger from current market cap. If I don't want to contemplate it, if the EIA is not, the downside is quite low. So your upside to 10 bagger, your downside to being a sort of drifting micro cap is that we go back to a market cap of half the current value. So it's quite tantalizing. So
exactly, Gabriel.
I mean, they're my sort of wrap up for your investors.
And look, you've been around long enough to know that that's what you're, you're looking as a micro cap investor, that's what you're looking for, is those really good risk reward ratios.
Yeah, and Greg, my job's to promote Black Dragon. It's under promoted, so I'll be out pushing the flesh, not only just through David Michael's Euros Hartley's network, but I'll be on the East Coast when I get back to Australia. I'll be doing more presentations. I'll be on the circuit and promoting the company. So it's been underinvested on that side.
Absolutely. Gabriel, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Greg and Jake, thanks for showing interest, and thanks to all your investors on the line. Really appreciate it.
Easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.